Welcome to the statewide Title II Part A Program Compliance Requirements training. My name is Gerardo Ramirez, and I am the Title II Part A Program Director at the Texas Education Agency. Let's get started. During this session, participants will gain a better understanding of the resources that are available for Title II Part A, the program purpose, the focus areas, allowable activities, and program compliance requirements associated with the ESSA Title II Part A program. We will also cover some documentation examples. Some of the resources that are available are the program-specific provisions and assurances, the Title II Part A program guide, the frequently asked questions document, and the use of funds one-pager. I want to take a few minutes and walk you through how to find each of these resources on the TEA website. To locate the program-specific provisions and assurances from the TEA main page, click on the Grant Opportunities tab that appears along the top of the page. On the Grant Opportunities page, click on the drop-down list for the application name and select the appropriate grant. The grant names are sorted by the year of the grant. So in this example, we are selecting 2021-2022 as a consolidated federal grant application. When the program information for the grant loads, scroll down to the section called Application and Support Information. Among the links provided is one called ESSA Program Specific. These are the program-specific provisions and assurances that the grantee officials agree to accept when they certify and submit the SC 5003 Formula Grants Consolidated Schedule. Think of this as a fine print of a contract. You definitely want to read it. These are the statutory program requirements that the LEA agrees to when applying for the federal funds. The section related to the Title II Part A starts on page 37 of this document. The next thing that I'd like to show you on our website is how to access the Title II Part A resource documents. If you are starting from the main TEA webpage, mouse over the Finance and Grants tab and select Federal Program Compliance link. That will take you to our division homepage, which you might want to bookmark for future reference. If you scroll down, you will find a link for the Title II Part A program page. If you scroll down a bit more, you will find on the right-hand side a box labeled Resources. There you will find links to the Title II Part A Frequently Asked Questions document, program webinars, the Title II Part A program guide, and a use of funds one-pager. The program guide is based on the program-specific provisions and assurances, but we have tried to present the information in a more user-friendly manner. Where the language of the provisions and assurances is straight out of statute, the program guides are generally easier to read. We'll be referring to the specific pages of the Title II program guide during the rest of this presentation. When a slide refers to information found in the program guide, there will be a page number referenced in the lower right-hand corner of the slide. The purpose of Title II Part A is to provide grants to SEAs and subgrants to LEAs to increase the student achievement consistent with the challenging state academic standards, improve the quality and effectiveness of teachers, principals, and other school leaders, increase the number of teachers, principals, and other school leaders who are effective in improving student academic achievement in schools, and provide low-income and minority students greater access to effective teachers, principals, and other school leaders. The intent of the Title II Part A is to support educators in their work, to improve the overall quality of instruction, and to ensure equity of educational opportunity for all students. Supplement NASA Plan, as stated in SS Section 2301, it states that funds made available under this title shall be used to supplement and not supplant non-federal funds that will otherwise be used for activities authorized under this title. In order for activities to be considered supplemental, program activities must enhance, expand, or extend required activities. When checking for traditional SNS compliance, auditors will presume that a supplant has occurred if an LEA has used any program funds to do any of the following: to provide services required by state or local law, to provide the same services as those provided in prior school year with state or local funds, or to provide the same services in federal and non-federal programs. There are circumstances where it might be possible to rebut the presumption of supplanting, but the LEA is responsible for providing documentation to do this. Documentation might include documentation of a rescission of funds or a budget reduction, or documentation that prior fund source is no longer available. There are some standard questions for an LEA to ask to determine whether a particular service or activity is supplemental. Is the activity or service required by state or local law? Did the LEA provide this activity or service in prior year? What funds did the LEA use to provide activity or service? And is activity or service provided with federal funds to some recipients and with state and local funds to other recipients? For more information, please refer to the Supplement NASA Plan Handbook available in the Federal Program Compliance Division webpage. Now, let's focus. Title II Part A has three areas of focus. The first is to recruit, support, and retain effective teachers and principals. The second is professional development and growth. And the third is other evidence-based activities. For the first area of focus, there are several categories of activities that can be allowed under Title II Part A program, such as educator induction and mentorship programs, teacher leadership, school principal support, educator cultural competence, recruiting qualified individuals from other fields, improving school working conditions, and recruiting, hiring, and retaining effective teachers in high-need schools. For the professional development area focus, professional development activities that meet the statutory definition are sustained, intensive, collaborative, data-driven, personalized or based on information from evaluation and support system, and classroom-focused. Let's take a look at high-need schools. High-need schools is defined as high-need schools are low-income schools with high percentages of ineffective teachers and high percentages of students who do not meet the challenging state academic standards. Activities that may fit under the category of recruiting, hiring, and retaining effective teachers in high-need schools may include assistance screening candidates, differential and incentive pay, advancement opportunities that could include leadership, multiple career paths, and pay differentials, induction and mentoring programs, performance evaluation training, auditing the quality of evaluation and support systems, and equity-based activities that can include incentives, job-embedded opportunities, and teacher timebacks. Allowable activities in the area of professional development and educator growth include supplemental activities in the following categories: assessments and data, analysis career readiness education, child sexual abuse prevention, early childhood instruction, effectively teaching children with disabilities, effectively teaching English language learners, evaluation and support systems, evidence-based professional development, identification and support or gifted students, school library programs, supporting students affected by trauma and or mental illness, STEM-focused professional development. As you can see, there is a wide range of professional development topics that are allowable. Whatever professional development topics the LEA decides on, there are two critical determinations the LEA must make. The activity must be supplemental, for example, not required by state or local law. The LEA should refer back to those three presumptions of supplanting that we discussed earlier in the presentation. And the activity must meet the statutory professional development definition. The third area of focus of the Title II Part A program is other evidence-based activities. But what is evidence-based? An activity is considered to be evidence-based if it demonstrates a statistically significant effect on improving student outcomes and other relevant outcomes based on strong evidence from at least one well-designed and well-implemented experimental study, or moderate evidence from at least one well-designed and well-implemented quasi-experimental study, or promising evidence from at least one well-designed and well-implemented correlational study with statistical controls for selection bias. The activity demonstrates a rationale based on high-quality research findings or positive evaluation that such activity, strategy, or intervention is likely to improve student outcomes or other relevant outcomes, and that it includes ongoing efforts to examine the effects of such activity, strategy, or intervention. So what does that even mean? The LEA needs to have research to justify the choice of activity. It can't just be because the speaker is really entertaining or because the price was right. When planning other evidence-based activities, part of the planning process should include a documentation as to why the LEA expects activity to have a positive effect. Consider whether the LEA can replicate the results of the study, and consider whether the LEA implemented activity in an appropriate context. Let's talk for a minute about class size reduction. Under ESSA, class size reduction can still be allowed under Title II Part A, but only under evidence-based activity area of focus. The LEA must have research evidence showing the class size reduction for the grade, subject, and number of students in question is actually effective. And since Title II Part A funds must be supplemental, they cannot be used to meet the state required 22-to-1 ratio for grades K through 4. Now, let's talk about uses of funds. We do have a use of funds one pager for Title II Part A available as a resource in our website, as mentioned earlier. When the LEA is deciding how to use its Title II Part A funds, the LEA must ensure that the activities are supplemental. The LEA has prioritized the use of Title II Part A funds for campuses that are in school improvement and for campuses that have high percentages of low-income students. It is highly recommended that the LEA consider the recruitment, retention, and the professional development needs that have been identified through its comprehensive needs assessment process. The LEA District Improvement Plan should show that activities that have been aligned with the challenging state academic standards and that they were determined through a meaningful consultation with required stakeholders and in coordination with other programs. The activities must be reasonable and necessary, be allocable under the grant, and be allowable under Title II Part A. The activities must meet EDGAR requirements and be in accordance with the LEA's policies and procedures. Now, let's talk about program compliance. Title II Part A has 6 compliance requirements. First, we have alignment of activities to the challenging state academic standards. This suggests that all Title II Part A program activities must be aligned to the state academic standards. Second, we have the timely and meaningful consultation with stakeholders. This requirement assists with the planning, implementation, and evaluation of the Title II Part A program. Third, we have the coordination. This requirement increases program effectiveness, eliminates duplication, and reduces fragmentation of the instructional program. Fourth, we have the prioritization of funds. LEAs are required to prioritize the use of the Title II Part A funds to schools that have been identified for school improvement by TEA and to schools that have the highest percentage of low-income children. For our next requirement, LEAs are required to have a system of professional growth and improvement. And lastly, LEAs that have private schools within their boundaries are also required to comply with the uniform provisions for providing equitable services to private schools as specified in ESSA Section 8501. Let's take a deeper dive into each of these key compliance requirements. We mentioned already that the Title II Part A program activities must be aligned with the state academic standards. An easy way to document that is to include a statement in a district improvement plan that describes how the LEA will ensure that activities to be carried out on the Title II Part A will be aligned with the challenging state academic standards. The LEA should also retain activity documentation. Here we have an example supporting documentation for this requirement. First, we have pages with the statement and the district improvement plan. In this example, it reads, the district will recruit, employ, develop, and retain highly qualified staff to maximize learning for all students, ensure that all staff meet the high quality standards as aligned with the state academic standards, and provide opportunities for professional growth through the first year teacher academy, second year teacher academy, and mentor programs. This can be enhanced with sign-in sheets, agendas, and a presentation if available. Now, let's take a look at timely and meaningful consultation. Timely and meaningful consultation with stakeholders is a critical requirement that can be found throughout the ESSA statute. It is important for LES to ensure that the processes and procedures include elements that document timely and meaningful stakeholder consultation and the process associated with planning, implementing, and evaluating the Title II Part A program. Title II statute lists the required stakeholders for meaningful consultation. These include teachers, principals, other school leaders, paraprofessionals, specialized instruction support personnel, charter school leaders and LEAs that have charter schools, parents, community partners, and other organizations. The statute also further defines a couple of these categories. One is the other school leaders category. Here we have the definition for other school leaders as read in section 810144. The term school leader means a principal, assistant principal, or other individual who is an employee or officer of an elementary school or secondary school, local education agency, or other entity operating an elementary and secondary school, and responsible for the daily instruction, leadership, and managerial operations in the elementary school or secondary school building. For example, LEA central staff meet the first part of the definition, but they might not meet the second part. As a result, they are not identified as school leaders. Now, let's talk about specialized instruction support personnel. Specialized instruction support personnel include school counselors, school social workers, school psychologists, school nurses, speech language pathologists, school librarians, and other qualified professional personnel involved in providing assessment, diagnosis, counseling, educational, therapeutic, and other necessary services, including related services, as part of a comprehensive program to meet student needs. LEAs are required to seek advice from the required stakeholders regarding how to best improve the LEA's activities to meet the purpose of the Title II Part A program. To use data and ongoing consultation to continually update and improve Title II Part A activities. Some guiding questions that may be used throughout this process include, are stakeholders involved in the planning process on an ongoing basis? Are the activities associated with the meaningful consultation of stakeholders held at a variety of times to ensure attendance and engagement? And are the planning activities part of the process rather than event? Some other recommended strategies for improving the consultation process and strengthening the LEA's Title II Part A planning and implementation include seeking diverse perspectives within the stakeholders groups, making stakeholders aware of past and current uses of Title II funds, and include analysis of effectiveness of current and proposed activities. So you might be wondering, how can we have good documentation? Here we have a description of consultation process as stated in a district improvement plan. In this slide, you can see that the LEA invites parents, teachers, school administrators, paraprofessionals, specialized support personnel, and community partners to participate in a collaborative committee process to ascertain the strengths and needs of the LEA campus, to evaluate prior year program results, and to consider the best use of program funds for the upcoming school year. The committee meets in the late spring to review subcommittee reports and survey results and to prioritize the LEA campus needs. The committee meets in mid-school year to check progress and again at the end of the year to evaluate program results. Recommendations for adjustments may be made to improve the program at the mid-year point or at the end of the year. Using the same example, let's look for opportunities for supporting documentation. In the first sentence, we have invites parents, teachers, school administrators, etc. This documentation may include announcements, flyers, invitations sent out to the stakeholders, and such. Next, we see that the committee evaluates prior year program results. This suggests that there is data to be disseminated among the stakeholders for them to consider. Next, we have another meeting in late spring. Then we see more surveys and data instruments used. Then we see another meeting and at the end of the year meeting for evaluation. And finally, we see the recommendations provided either at the mid-year meeting or at the end of the year. As you can see, a lot of supporting documentation may come out of one paragraph. Please be mindful of this as you develop or enhance your consultation process. When developing this process, be on the lookout for some considerations such as, is this process laid out in the district improvement plan? If so, can it be improved? LEAs are required to seek advice from the required stakeholders. An invitation is not the same as getting their feedback. And what avenues can you think of to gather feedback and advice? Now let's look at coordination. Coordination with other federal, state, and local programs, and with other related strategies, programs, and activities being conducted in the community is essential for a good implementation of the Title II Part A program. Some benefits of this coordination include increased program effectiveness, eliminate duplication, and reduce fragmentation of instructional program. You might be asking, how do I document coordination? When doing so, remember that coordination is about establishing relationships with others and preventing working in silos. Ask yourself, are there other programs, entities, or community organizations that can assist with such activity? For example, Cloudy ISD has a child advocacy center within its boundaries. Yearly, the center provides professional development for the LEA staff. In this example, the LEA is coordinating with community organizations in order to provide quality professional development that is targeted to the community needs as identified in the needs assessment and their DIP. Reflect, what other federal and state program initiatives can you think of that you could coordinate efforts in the Title II Part A umbrella? Now let's take a look at prioritization of funds. LEAs are required to prioritize the use of Title II Part A funds to schools that have been identified for school improvement by TEA and to schools that have the highest percentage of low-income children. One way to help document compliance with this requirement is to include a statement in the district improvement plan that describes how the LEA prioritizes its Title II Part A funds. The LEA should also retain documentation that shows Title II Part A activities and their costs for each campus correlated to school improvement status and low income percentage. So what is a good documentation? Here we have a description of prioritization of funds. Because the LEA has no campus identified for school improvement under Section 1111, the LEA focused the use of the Title II Part A funds at campuses with the highest percentages of low-income students. Using the same method we did before, we will look for opportunities for supporting documentation. First, the section of No Campus Identified. Such documentation will come off as a memo or letter in the LEA letterhead stating such status. Then, a breakdown with the Title II Part A funds and their distribution to campuses based on schools with highest percentages of low-income students. When considering how to document, reflect if there is a description of prioritization of funds in your district improvement plan. An example of this is the LEA has two campuses identified for school improvement under Section 1111. However, because all the professional development needs of these campuses have been met through the Title I School Improvement Grant, the LEA has focused the use of Title II Part A funds at campuses with the highest percentages of low-income students. Please remember that things change. It is best practice to have a methodology developed in the event the LEA needs it and recognized in their district improvement plan. In addition to that statement, here's a table that may be provided as a supporting documentation stating how their needs are being met. As you can see, we have the identification of school improvement, poverty percentage, and as well as the distribution of funds of Title II Part A funds per campus. Now let's shift the focus to a system of professional growth and improvement. LEAs are required to have a system of professional growth and improvement, such as induction for teachers, principals, and other school leaders, opportunities to build capacity of teachers, opportunities to develop meaningful teacher leadership. One way to demonstrate compliance with this requirement is to include a statement in the district improvement plan that describes the LEA system of professional growth and improvement. The LEA should also retain documentation of activities that were conducted, showing that the system has been implemented. Lastly, let's talk about private nonprofit school participation. LEAs that have private schools within their boundaries are also required to comply with the uniform provisions for providing equitable services to private schools as specified in ESSA Section 8501. For more information on equitable services and for answers to frequently asked questions concerning services to private schools, please follow the ESSA Private School Equitable Services link on the Federal Program Compliance Division webpage. Now, let's continue with program compliance and monitoring. In order to follow compliance, we must remember that first, we follow the law, ESA. We also follow the Uniform Administrative Requirements Cost Principles and Audit Requirements for Federal Awards, otherwise known as the UGG. We follow the Education Department of General Administrative Regulations, EDGAR, and we follow the non-regulatory guidance for the Title II Part A program. This helps us move into program compliance. Compliance monitoring for the Title II Part A program is done through three major events. To monitor compliance of each eligible entity receiving ESSA funds, the state conducts an annual validation process for LEAs, known as the random validation process. The annual validation process for LEAs addresses the statutory requirements based on program implementation and effectiveness for the current grant year. During the annual validation process, the state randomly selects LEAs to submit documentation for the program compliance requirements. TEA reviews the documentation to determine if the subgrantee met the statutory requirements as noted in the validation guidance documents. Then we have the compliance report, known as the PR 3000. This is the compliance report for Title II Part A. And finally, TEA provides a program compliance self-check guiding document that is meant to assist LEAs completing the compliance report. When thinking about compliance monitoring, you might be wondering if the documentation at hand is good enough. Good documentation is clear, concise, useful, organic to the process, and contemporaneous. As previously mentioned, the Program Compliance Self-Check Guide is a document that will assist LEAs in completing the ESSA Consolidated Compliance Report. The compliance items are organized by topic. Let's look where you can find this guide. The Program Compliance Self-Check questions are structured as a yes, no, or not applicable format. Yes means that the LEA is in compliance and has all the documentation readily available, and any or all the documentation listed may be requested during a validation or an audit. No means the LEA is not in compliance. The LEA will have space to explain how it will come into compliance for the following year. And not applicable is only an option for some questions. A question that we get is what is meant by in compliance? The compliance report lists the strongest documentation recommended. It also states that the LEA may have other documentation that could potentially show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff will make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with the program requirement. So, what is meant by not in compliance? Not in compliance means that the LEA is not meeting the program requirement in the current reporting year. It will also ask the LEA to describe the plan to meet compliance the following year. Here's an example of one of the program compliance self-check items. As you can see, the answer choices are in radio buttons. If the LEA selects not in compliance, the LEA will have space to describe their plan to be in compliance next year. This guide might be found under the ESSA Consolidated Compliance Report Resources link that is available in the Federal Program Compliance webpage. Finally, I would like to bring your attention to this map. Here we have 20 different regions of the state. In each region, we have an Education Service Center, commonly referred as ESC. These ESCs are a resource for LEAs to use, and they provide technical assistance in several different aspects. Please reach out to them as they contain a wealth of information. Thank you so much for your time and attention. If you have any questions, please reach out through the contact information listed on the screen.